Welcome back to the table. Today, I am not here with Ryan. This isn't Ryan.
No.
This is Travis Chance. He's a senior designer at CMON, but more importantly, he's a local friend of ours. A friend that's so close that we've played how many games together?
Two.
Two games in our lives in the 5 years we've known each other.
Yeah, it's pretty. It might even be more than 5 years, actually.
It's been since 2016, probably, or 2017.
Yeah, so 6+ years we've played 2 games.
Yeah, you tuned in for this, I'm sure. But actually what you tuned in for is Death May Die, Fear of the Unknown. But don't worry, not all will be unknown after you watch this. But we're also not going to spoil a lot either. We're going to talk about what the game is going to be bringing sort of to the Death May Die franchise. But also this scenario that we've got up on the table here.
We played it.
Travis and I, our second game in our lives was playing this scenario yesterday.
Yeah, getting whomped, right? They were coming after us pretty hard.
Yeah, so tell us, so we've got one of the Elder Gods, or Elder Ones here. Mm-hmm. We've got one of the episodes. This is, you're going to do it, not me.
Tsathoggua. We looked at numerous pronunciation guides.
And that was the best we could come up with.
None of which are reliable.
I think that was accurate. And we're playing here, or not playing, but we played episode 2 of season 3 here.
Top of the morning.
Top of the morning. You want to do an accent? We've been doing voices all morning.
Yeah, it's out of control.
I'm trying to get him to do his Christopher Walken on camera because it's pretty good.
It's not great.
It's pretty good.
It's fine.
But yeah, we played this episode yesterday, and I can attest it is just as difficult as what you'd expect from Death May Die, but actually even more so with some of the new stuff they've added. But let's talk about what we have here on the table here. This, as you can see, as I spread my arm across this, is a pretty big scenario here. Not only that, is you're going to see a lot of new tiles that you've never seen before in earlier Death May Die. You're going to see brand new sculpts for all the cultists. And then we've got a bunch of enemies and figures here. We've got the ghasts. We've got some gugs off the board. You've seen those.
Serpent Men,
which is one of the unknown monsters. Put a pin in that. More on that later. We've got the
unnameable.
There, who's sort of like one of the scenario-based creatures for this episode. And then, of course, we've got the board over here with all the cards, the scenario episode card, and then, do you want to do it again?
Tsathoggua.
Itself, himself, herself, themself. Itself. And the new thing here is the unknown monster board, which has 2 random unknown monsters that you're going to add to the game to ratchet up the difficulty. And you're probably saying, well, I don't want it to be any more difficult. Well,
we got buffers.
You don't have to use it, but you can if you want to make it more difficult.
But wait, there's more.
Because to make it maybe less difficult, there's relics. The relics are cards that you're going to start with at the beginning of the game that give you kind of variable power that you can use. And the cool thing is once your insanity or sanity gets to sort of that 3rd trigger point, you're going to flip it and it's going to get even better.
And some of the relics, what's cool is that, for example, I have the Sinister Book in front of me, but whenever I hit that, then I discover that it's actually a very specific, iconic.
Do we want to say what the book is? What do you think? Comments below, but it is, wait.
Necronomicon.
The Necronomicon.
I mean, we've got all kinds of neat stuff like that. It's iconic items, mystical items, weapons, things like that from the mythos and other mythologies that have found their way into the game, which I think is really, really neat. Because you have that progression arc for your character, right? Like you're playing and you're kind of getting whittled down, but you're getting tougher as you go. Yeah. And then suddenly you're like, now in this moment of desperation, I figured out to harness the true power of this very special, unique item that I have. And you played a character that actually, one of the new characters that has 2 of these things.
I played Sandra. She was the Relic Seeker, or that's her special power anyway. And she starts with 2 relics, which was really cool. And she can hold more than 1, which basically every character could hold 1. I don't know if there's something in the scenario or in the game that would let her get maybe even a 3rd. Who knows? But using these relics is really cool, because I think one of those things that with this game, and I know he agrees because when we played yesterday, he went one way, I went the other. I always push my sanity, or my madness.
And I was careful.
Because I like leveling up. It's one of my favorite things in this game is pushing the madness up so I can level up. And you were being more careful. But I think these relics are going to effectively make it's going to lure people even more to ratchet up their madness quite a bit.
I was quite happy with the power that I had, the free reroll that I had, and I was trying to leverage that and kind of thoughtfully progress, because I didn't want us to both be in kind of a state where if we got some bad rolls or some things kind of went in a different way, then we'd be in a little tougher luck. So, and interestingly, because I had that item, that relic, my stress was maxed out for most of the game.
Yeah.
I never bothered to fix my stress, and I was relying on my relic to give me that opportunity to affect my dice a little more, as well as my special power, my chemical explosives.
And speaking of the special powers, let's back up for a second. We're going to talk about sort of the more of Death May Die that you get with Fear of the Unknown, because that is indeed what it does. You're going to get, I think, 6 new episodes.
It's 1-to-1 from the products that you already know.
Okay.
So it's 6 episodes, 2 elder gods, elder ones. It's got 10 investigators. And then like the same concentration of things like monsters and whatnot. But then it's also got this additional, now in terms of like the actual like number of room tiles and things like that, I'm not sure. Obviously we've got this extra board over here. We've got some extra content in the form of the unknown monsters. We've got some new tokens. Homeboy here likes to use fatigue. He likes to make us tired, a little sleepy when we're fighting him. We've got new
the insanities.
The insanities, yeah, we've got new insanities. But the things that are unique to and the same discovery cards, mythos cards, etc. What we have that's unique is that we have the relics, right? We have the unknown monsters, and then there's a new little module that allows you to do some replay. You can ratchet up the difficulty on the old scenario, the old episodes, and the old elder gods that you've played against, where the behavior is maybe a little predictable if you've played those a number of times. So this allows you, it's just a really simple implementation of some tokens that allows for a little more variety, that allows for some variety and less predictability if you want to ratchet up the difficulty a little more.
Yeah, that's really cool. In fact, the way it works, if you're familiar with Death May Die, and I'm assuming if you're watching this, you might have some sense of it. What he's talking about there is there are some tokens that you use, because if you've played, the elder ones will, when you go from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3, they'll usually spawn at a certain place or move to a certain place. And if you've played those scenarios, you kind of know where that's going to be.
Exactly.
In this, you'll just flip a token, and he might be going to the blue portal instead of the yellow or something like that.
Exactly.
So it makes those a little bit less predictable.
Yeah, you can't camp out if you're in a good place and you try to position so you can game it a little more.
Yeah, the meta of trying to game the game is sort of combated there a little bit.
Well, no, Unknown Monsters, I mean, my goodness, there was that point where they were just streaming in from the red portal.
We had a parade of them coming in from the red portal.
We had to go get this poor juror that was stranded over there, and it was just an ocean of interdimensional threats that we had to kind of wade through, doing just the normal task management that's known to the game. I think it's also probably worth mentioning too that some of the discovery cards add this kind of like a quest element to the game.
This is one of the cool. It's a
really
subtle
fun
thing, but it is one of the coolest things that I experienced yesterday, because I didn't expect this. There were cards in the discovery deck, and we don't want to spoil what the discoveries are specifically, but you'd flip them and you'd see, the typical take 2 stress to do this. And then there was something on the other side of the card, but you couldn't do something immediately when you picked it up. What it was is maybe a person or something that you needed to take to a certain location, and when you did, then you could take the card from one side of your board to the other side of your board and
so
sort of
like leveled up,
get that reward, which really added a lot of flavor. I think if you've played, the discovery cards are where a lot of the narrative comes through in this game for sure, but they've really ramped it up here. Also, in the Mythos deck, related to the unknown monsters, so let's talk a little bit about how the unknown monsters work. You're going to put this board out here, and it's actually a really cool board. I want to point this out. At the top of it, they've added the end of turn process and sequence, which is something that was in the rule book, but oftentimes you'd have to reference the rule book, so now it's right here on the table. But below that, there are 2 unknown monsters, and the game comes with a handful of
4 cards, I believe.
Different unknown monsters.
And then the Mythos cards. That's what it is.
Randomly pick 1 or 2 of them, and you put them out there. Those don't start on the board, but if you look at these cards, a lot of them, I think maybe most of them will say, when the Elder One advances, do these things. And oftentimes that's going to spawn some if they're not on the board. And it adds a fair amount of difficulty. If you think, it's probably just going to tweak it a little bit, it's a lot more creatures on the board than you'd expect. I'm very anxious to try that with some of the old scenarios, which you can do. Because there's some old episodes that, we've won very few times in my plays of it, if not ever.
Yeah, it's got some difficulty. And then there's some cards in here that are kind of like placeholder activations for the monsters. If you see, there's kind of two symbols, one at the top of each, and it'll say like, activate this guy, and then activate this monster, and then there's a little icon at the bottom that means resolve the next card.
Yeah.
So you might actually, what we ended up happening was the Gug moved, and it was really far away and it wasn't a problem. And then boom, it advances, he moves again, comes in, drops a wound, smashes everybody in the space. And we weren't counting on that moment. And suddenly I'm one wound away from dying. And like now I've got to like figure out how I'm gonna get out of this sticky situation, right? And it also allows you to see how certain monsters interact with certain Elder Ones or other monsters that might not come in the kind of prefix combinations that we've seen in the older stuff.
Yeah, and that is always an interesting part of Death May Die, is when you see those different combinations of monsters. Because even in the original game, you saw a little bit of that based on which scenario and which Elder One you used. But with this, adds even more variety to that. And then, like we said, on the flip side of that are the relics. And the relics, we've talked about them already and how they work. But some of these, just to give you a flavor for what they do here, I have the Jade Amulet here. It says, once during your turn, as a free action, you may move one enemy from your space to an adjacent space with that little Jade Amulet.
Yeah, you're scaring them away.
And then when it flips, it's basically just a juicier version of that. I'm allowed to do it twice during my turn. But again, if you've ever played, having the ability to push people around and manipulate the board that way is significant.
Well, especially when they, the way that the monsters kind of follow you, things follow you in the game.
Yeah.
So the fact that you could kind of position yourself. We were in an interesting situation where you had this card that allowed you to interact with this particular scenario so that the NPCs weren't just scattering to the wind.
Yeah.
You had the ability to kind of
like anchor them.
Yeah, you're like, hey guys, come on, let's not all run around here. So you had to kind of camp out in this one area while we went and kind of gathered them over, right? So that ability was helpful. If a bad guy could come in, a monster could come in, you could get them out of the space, right? So I think that's a very cool inclusion. We also were like gaming our insanity cards. We were like finding ways that we could do things that were useful with those, which exists in the existing material. Which, that's what I think is the main thing about this, right? Like, this just gives you more of what you already like. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's not throwing a bunch of unnecessary kind of bolted on things like, hey, if you want to do this now, you can play as, the Gug. You can be a Gug for the whole game. We're not doing that. It's more of what you already love. It's more of what already made the game fun and exciting and memorable with more opportunities, right?
Yeah, I think...
And a couple modules that I think are meaningful.
Yeah, on those modules, I think, it, like Travis just said, it's more of Death May Die, and it's a little more to that more. So
it's more.
It's more. That's their slogan.
More.
Oh, there it is. There it was. We got it. Christopher Walken appeared. He's not in the game, by the way. Not that I know of, anyway.
But it was fine.
But let's talk about the characters, too. One of the abilities that I had yesterday that I used with Sandra, she's a Relic Seeker. And this second level, which oftentimes I'll go up on sort of like Arcane Mastery, Marksmanship, Brawling, because I really like those. They're tried and true. So I don't always go up the character's powers, unless, of course, I'm playing Rasputin, because you have to go up his levels. But the Relic Seeker, her second one was, when investigating, you may claim items without taking stress. That was...
Game changer.
It was so fantastic. I had a crazy amount of discovery cards on the sides of my board, and it allowed me to do so much. Like, I think that was the card you mentioned earlier that allowed me to anchor people. Mm-hmm. It was basically allowing me to interact with the scenario in a much more significant
you could
fashion.
kind of reassure the NPCs that even though a bunch of crazy stuff was going on, that they were going to be safe in this space with you. You had them under control.
And because of that, like, if you're going to use Sandra, you got to know one thing that's going to affect the game. We were able to dig down through the discovery deck probably a little bit more that way because...
But we were changing the way we played too, because in order for you to leverage that ability, and interestingly, because you had the amulet that let you move things away, you could ensure more often that you ended up getting a discovery card. So it was a nice little kind of synergy between the powers.
Yeah, it was a nice synergy, and also, not that this is character related, but I had Megalomania, which... This was my insanity, and if there's no other investigator alive, I like that clarification, that has reached more of the thresholds on your badness track than me, I'd get all my stress back. And because I'm a player who likes to just continually push my madness,
And I was playing more conservatively.
That worked
It allowed
exactly.
you to work it out.
that worked out fine.
And I was Stella, who is a chemist. And my special power on the top row here is chemical explosives. And so it says when you attack, you may target one additional figure in the target space, and you can split the wounds.
Yeah, it's very similar to sort of brawling. Eventually lets you do that, but yeah, to be able to start with that.
But I had marksman, so I can do it at range. So it's kind of like I was throwing like
It was pretty sweet.
vials of explosive material at people. And then when I got to the second level, it says when you attack, you have one free reroll for each of your targets. Well, you can target an additional monster, so that means that's going to give me an additional reroll on top of the additional reroll. Plus, I had the lucky coin, which let me get another reroll.
Yeah.
So that's how I was that's why my stress was maxed out, and I could very carefully manage my madness, my insanity, so that I didn't kind of go too quickly. And that felt great, I thought. I leveled up my marksmanship so that way I could kind of boom from with extra dice from a one away. So you were kind of managing the NPCs. You were being the...
You were the damage dealer for sure.
Well, I was, but doing it at range, right?
Yeah.
So like when the unknown monsters suddenly are forcing the scariest guy to kind of run up in my space and start spamming wounds, that kind of threw a little bit of a wrench into my plans. So... and I thought that was fun. I mean, we've got a bunch of other characters too.
Let's see some of these other ones. We'll put these up on screen as we talk about them, but we've got, who's this?
This is Peters.
He's a surgeon. It was his power anyway.
Yeah, he's literally wielding like a bone saw.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, intimidating. So he says, when you kill an enemy, heal one stress or wound on an investigator in your space, including yourself.
Yeah.
So he's dealing out death, but also kind of working you back in that way. So it makes those rest actions have to occur a little less often. They're really cool.
Get to the guy, the next guy.
This guy, Leon.
This guy is hilarious because one of the things that's cool about Death May Die is that there's characters that have like more mystical abilities. You've got Rasputin. You've got, I think it's just called simply the girl.
No, the kid.
The kid from the original that has fire, like a fire starter type character.
Yeah.
Leon is just some dude in cargo shorts and a Hawaiian shirt, and his ability is show off.
Yeah. If there's another investigator in your space, you get an extra green. You get a green die.
Yeah, basically, and I think all of them benefit from basically having people around
if there's
you.
an investigator within 2 spaces, you get a green die. Yeah. Instead, for each other investigator within 2 spaces, you gain a green die and 1 free reroll. So yeah, like he's trying to impress people. I think his thing is he's like a war veteran with like a bunch of medals of honor, and this is kind of like he's like moonlighting as a monster hunter.
It's just the flavor of the characters. You've got a guy like that, and Rasputin, and Albert Einstein from the original game.
And Julian. Julian, he's kind of got the Charles Dickens vibe going on.
Yeah, he does got a little bit of an Oliver thing going on.
Yeah. And then he says, when making any roll, after all rerolls, you may heal 1 stress for each tentacle result you have. So.
Oh, yeah. See, now this is the one that I'd like. Instead, the tentacles. A lot of people shy away. You shied away from that. I was kind of surprised to see you shy away from it.
It's a really strange thing. I typically don't like to lose games, so like I try not to rush toward impending doom. But I get it. This is the attraction of the game, right?
Yeah.
Like,
the character progression. It's why my sons play this game. They don't play a lot of board games, but this is one they love because of that character progression and how
fun.
It's balanced.
And I mean, like you feel like you're getting stronger, but at the risk of like closing the game out, right? So, and it gets really interesting when you get into this last little bracket here. When you hit that 4th one,
oh my god! Oh yeah! Oh no, I push it. So name off the rest of them. I'll put them up on screen.
Ruth.
We've got Ruth.
She's sly. Once
sly.
per run, when you sneak, you heal stress.
Nice.
Okay.
Agatha,
she's kind of like a female
she's got a Tommy
mobster. I learned to shoot when people wouldn't stop calling me Aggie. So once per turn, when attacking, you may take 1 stress to deal 1 additional wound. That is crazy.
Yes.
We got this guy, Hugh Kong. Self-defense. When attacked, if no wounds are dealt, you may heal 1 stress and may push the attacker 1 space away.
Oh, okay. Another one. Another crowd control.
He's really cool.
The next one's the last one?
That's Sally, the kind of wartime correspondent photographer.
Oh, yeah. This one was cool, too.
She's really neat. When an investigator leaves your space, you may follow.
Yeah.
So
she's taking pictures.
Well, she's taking pictures, but it's action. I mean, this game ultimately boils down to action efficiency, right?
Yeah.
So she's getting... and you think about her with like Leon, who's getting an extra die, and you're like, Leon, you go first, you move, and then I'll follow you into the space. That way I'm getting a free move out of it, right? and you're getting the extra die. So there's, and again, they're not reinventing the wheel here. These are like mechanisms that exist in all the other, like concepts that exist within the main game that we've already experienced.
With a little different flavor though. And that's why I like the theme that comes into this is really, really strong. And I will say, you heard action efficiency over here. Playing a game with Travis, because he's a board game designer, you hear things like action efficiency, and it's right there in his head while we're playing. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, and obviously, like, I'm a cheerleader for the company I work for, right? And I think Rob Davio is an amazing designer. He does a really good job of making games that are really fun. And I also think that Marco, who was one of the developers on the original product, has stepped up to take the role of designer. It did an awesome. I mean, and I can see those development threads in here for the elevated stuff, like the little cute things, like the way that the questy
discovery cards is
really
one of the coolest
cool
things. I'm looking forward to seeing how more of those play out in other episodes.
But nerd talk from a designer, what's really amazing about this game is it's super simple, and the fact that you can say, here's 10 new characters that don't require additional components that do something meaningful that feels unique is like a testimony to how just completely smart and elegant the game system is, that you can get that much, here's ready for a game term, width. You can get that much width.
Yeah, and that was width and action efficiency. You're getting it all here, folks. Yeah, there's 10 characters, and that's on top of the, I think, in total, you could have over 40 already. The base game and all the extras and some of the campaigns that have been
40 in the first.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's over 40, and now with this, it's probably going to be 50 or more, which is kind of crazy. But like you said, they're all very flavorful. But if you have any questions at all about what we've talked about here today, if you have any questions about what we haven't talked about, too bad. Probably not going to be able to answer those in the comments below. But I'm going to let him, if he wants to jump in the comments, he's allowed to answer whatever he wants to. I'll let him get in trouble, not me.
We're coming up soon to the launch is imminent, so it'll a lot of the questions that you have will be answered upon launch date.
Yeah, you can see it proof right here on the table. It exists, so it is coming, and it is coming soon, and we'll of course on
and this
the
is the first of cool content that we're making with people like yourself.
You're going to see content here.
And other channels.
Dice
Tower, Quackalope.
All over the place.
Board Game Co. So I'm doing a little road trip to kind of show the game off. And but you get to babysit it for a while.
We were lucky enough, because Travis lives right here in town, I was able to like steal him away and do this. Well, like I said, if you have any questions, make them in the comments below. We'll answer what we can. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.